In historical times, there were major stigmas that had kept women out of organized sports. Women were perceived as too fragile for physical activities, especially competitive sports. Sports didn't line up with the societal expectations of feminism. There was a fear that women in sports would challenge traditional gender roles. The film A League of Their Own has various scenes that portray the cultural perceptions that sports were reserved for men. In the tryout scene, women arrived and recruiters were already making comments about women questioning their abilities based on what they looked like. This signifies that people, especially males, wouldn't take women seriously based on the belief that sports should be strictly for males. Another scene that relates to the visual expectations of women in sports is when the uniforms were revealed to them. In this scene, the women were given skirts that were uncomfortable and impractical for sports. They had to wear them to make sure they weren't conflicting with traditional gender roles that show that they just weren't being seen as real athletes. Another scene from the film that depicts stigmas against women in sports is when Jimmy Duggan yells at Evelyn that there's no crying in baseball. She got emotional and made a mistake, and she started crying, which shows she isn't emotionally tough as compared to men. It created the negative stigma that women are too emotional to play and don't fit the criteria of a true athlete, like men do. Furthermore, into the readings, Schultz discusses how sports for women were often limited to non-contact sports, such as golf, tennis, and swimming. They were seen as more graceful activities with less contact, which showed how sports that were more physical and masculine were not appropriate for women at the time. The author explains how media coverage of women athletes were very different than how men were talked about in media. They rarely wrote about women's athletic achievements and would more so focus on their personal lives. They weren't taken as serious athletes, and writers wanted sports to remain more male dominant. Women's sports rarely got funded for, and their facilities were way less than what the men had, and there were way fewer opportunities for them. Furthermore, male leadership was dominant in women's sports, and women were rarely given the opportunity to lead. Most of their coaches were men, which reinforced the idea that men have authority over women when it comes to sports. Overall, the film and the readings give us a clear picture of how cultural norms, institutional practices, and societal expectations position sports as male dominant. The material showed the stigma that had kept women out of sports that were organized during this time. Thank you.